Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone that, hang on, sorry, Taylor, we're going to stop it. Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who has built his mortgage business from the ground up in one of the most tight-knit and loyalty-driven markets in the country, the military community of Virginia Beach. After 7 years of originating and 5.5 years of coaching, he's grown to over 100 units a year, earned the number 2 spot at Union Home in VA lending, and is now building the kind of team and financial foundation that makes work a choice rather than a requirement. Taylor Briggs, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hey, thank you, Connor. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be on here.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to have you. I know we're going to have a great conversation today, and it's been fun getting to know you and getting to hear sort of your perspective on the industry and just learning your story. But I just want to jump right in. So you're 32 years old. You started originating at 25. Been in the business 7 years. And you mentioned that most of the people who mentored you early on were in another generation, late 50s, early 60s, and doing it because they had to, not because they really wanted to anymore. How did watching that shape the way you think about building your business and your finances right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So getting into the industry, I had a little bit of background in secondary and capital markets before I switched into originating. And when I switched to originating, as you mentioned, a lot of the mentors and peers that I had were 30 plus years my senior. And a lot of them, while they've been making good money since before '08, didn't really have a lot to show for it. They were originating because they had to, not because they wanted to. And I realized the amount of money that you can make in this industry to still have to do it in your 50s or 60s is not the life that I wanted to live. I wanted to do it because I enjoyed it, not because I was dependent upon it, basically paycheck to paycheck. So making sure that not only did I financially educate my clients, but I financially educated myself to make the right decisions to set myself up for early retirement or work being optional was a huge factor and foundation of how I've decided to build my business over the last 7 years.
Yeah. And something that I've gotten to know about you is that you're a huge surfer, traveler, right? And so I love that you're able to find balance with that. I don't know how many of these listeners are surfers, okay, but where are some of the best surfing spots in the world that you've been to?
Man, so I try and do an international or at least a surf trip once every couple months. I just got back in January from the Canary Islands, spent 8 days on a sailboat sailing all through the different islands and surfing. That was an absolutely amazing place. It's just this beautiful volcanic landscape. So think of it as like Hawaii for Europe. I've been all over Central America, been Hawaii, handful of places in Europe. But I got to say, the Canary Islands, the trip that I just did was amazing. And to go and not even bring my laptop was amazing too. And that's something, I built my team out to kind of help support. So I definitely travel as much as I can while trying to make sure the wheels stay on the track with the business.
Yeah, well, traveling without the laptop, that's the big win right there, right? Like I know a lot of people that struggle with that. People who've been doing this for 25 years and still take 2 monitors with them on vacation and they just miss out on so much. So I love that you've been able to reach a place where you can take a break and really get away from it. It's so important. Now, your market that you're in, Virginia Beach, is a massive military market, and you've built a real reputation inside that community. You work with active duty SEALs referring you, and some builders like Ryan Holmes and DR Horton call you to kind of rescue deals. That kind of trust doesn't happen by accident. How did that reputation get started? And what did you do early on to earn it?
Yeah, so I did probably everything it worked out, but the wrong way and the difficult way. So the first year, 2 years I was in the business, I pretty much called any agent that would answer the phone and asked them, hey, have you had anyone that's been turned down recently? Worst case scenario, they hear no a second or third time, depending on how many people they've spoken to. Best case scenario, they get it home, you get a paycheck, I get a paycheck. I'm able to build my reputation from that. So really my first 2 years in the business, I was doing 50, 60 loans a year. And I think my average credit score was like a 610, maybe a 620 if I got lucky. So I like to joke, like 20 years of experience in two years, because I don't think I had maybe more than 5 loans that had a 700 plus credit score in that 2 year span. So every loan had hair on it. Every loan was difficult. But because of that, I built a really good reputation with the builders, really good reputation with the agents, and the clients are incredibly appreciative because they'd heard no one, two, three, 7 times, depends on, how many people they spoke to over a certain amount of time. And with that, they referred me pretty heavily and still do. So I've been able to leverage that not only with agent relationships, but agents are really only maybe 35-40% of my business. A lot of it comes from past clients, and a lot of it now from social media from those past clients posting me in groups and sharing me within their communities. And it's all because I spent the first 2 years of my business just doing all the problem children files that nobody wanted to touch.
Yeah, there's so much like there's magic to those, right? Because those people don't just buy one house. They don't know, it's not like they don't know anyone else, right? So when you
Right.
are able to step in and be that rescue lender or the person that would see something, see a path forward for them that no one else was willing to see, they do tend to pay you back and with new referrals and
Very much.
introductions and all of that. And that's amazing, man. Are you starting to see some of those come back now? I mean, and when you here's my real question. When you are posting those on social media and kind of getting that, have you always been intentional about that, or is that something that you just started doing recently?
Yeah. So since I started originating, I always try to do something on a weekly time frame of at least like one video or some social media posting. And as my business picked up, I definitely leveraged it higher, especially now that the last couple of years I've closed over 100 units a year. I have more closings I can post, more content. So I've upped the amount of times that I post in a particular week. But I definitely found with me being in my early 30s, the last couple of years has been paying dividends with me staying consistent with that, because a lot of my peers and people I went to high school and college with are now having kids. They're buying houses. They're around that age where they're a little bit more financially squared away. So they're starting to look at those options. Even if they don't start with me, I get at least, a couple a month where they're like, hey, I'm talking to insert bank or mortgage company here, but I forgot you did this. I saw you post a closing. Hey, can you take a look at this, see if I'm getting a good deal? Now, sometimes they are, and I tell them to hug their loan officer and stay put. And other times I'm like, I can't tell you you're getting ripped off, but I'd be happy to put some numbers together for you so you can either make a decision to switch or go to your loan officer and ask some important questions. And I pick up 10 or 15 closings a year at a minimum from that, just from people that know me through my sphere and just network, that see the success I'm having on social media, and it helps me stay top of mind. And with agents too, it allows me to reach out almost as a warm call or a warm touch, because they see me constantly post and they know my face and my name before I even reach out to them. So I have a lot more success converting appointments that way too, as opposed to just picking up and dialing, because they don't know the face or the name really behind the call, but they do behind the DM and the message.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's so much power to that. Now, you did something really smart as it relates to your team. It's a simple thing. A lot of people overlook it, but you've built your team, and then you put together like a one pager so that you could
Mhm.
introduce your team to clients and referral partners. You attach it to every pre-approval so that the clients and the listing agents know exactly who they are and who they're working with from day one. Where did that idea come from, and what kind of difference has it made in how clients and agents actually treat your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the difference that it made from a process standpoint, as I've grown my team and started to delegate a little bit more so I can spend more time doing sales activities outside of chasing documents and all the things that us loan officers as we build our business have to do, is when I do delegate to a person on my team, the client and the agent already know who that is. And it's also been a huge benefit to when that pre-approval is sent over, especially if it's a listing agent I don't know or in a market that we don't have a huge presence in, because I do work a lot with the military and they PCS and relocate all over the country. They're able to see with that pre-approval letter a breakdown of myself, my credentials, my tenure, awards, accolades, and a breakdown of who else is on my team that they're going to be dealing with. So that way, it's not just a faceless call center LO or an LO they're not familiar with. They can tangibly put that together and see, especially on a VA loan, my credentials when it comes to helping VA clients. And I got the idea from other top producers that I've talked to through various coaching platforms that I've been a member of over the last 5 or so years. But as I built my team out, I didn't really need it initially, but now I have more people that are helping my clients. I don't want there to be any confusion. I'm always available for the clients, as I feel like any loan officer should be. But in order for us to be running a successful business, you can't do everything. And if they can do it at least 80% as good as I can do it, that's a win for everyone. And if I need to get involved, I will, but at least they know who they're talking to.
Yeah. I honestly, I actually think the moments where you do need to get involved is just as an enhancement of you, right? Like the team's running smooth and then you have to step in, have that hero moment. That's great. Like that's a win-win situation in my opinion. But anyway, so you described a moment on a deal recently where the listing agent told a buyer to call you because she knew you could figure it out. And within 24 hours, you had them ready to go, right? Now, that kind of referral is built over time. It takes a while to kind of build that kind of trust. Walk me through how you go about like identifying the gaps in an agent's business and really positioning yourself as that go-to person.
Yeah, absolutely. Every agent is different on how they've built their business. Some agents, they're part of a team or they're a solo agent that are strictly lead agents through Zillow, Redfin, you name it. Some of them, they work their sphere and that's it. And some of them, are kind of a hybrid and they're really into marketing. So when I sit down with agents, because I've, kind of done a little bit of everything to build my business over time, I figure out exactly what their business plan is. And if they don't have one, we go over how to build one, their goals, because a lot of loan officers and a lot of agents that I talk to have no clue how many families they want to help in a particular year. They have no clue what the metrics are. They really have no clue how many deals they did last year or where they came from. So that's the biggest thing that we sit down and see is a lot of your transactions coming from leads. Are they coming from your sphere? Are they referral agents that are sending you deals to your market and how we can leverage that? So for me, the biggest thing is seeing what their ideal client is, what their current, client demographic is, and figuring out how our system can plug into that. If they're lead agents, luckily I built my business, right now with no MSAs, no lead spends, no nothing. So our overhead is super skinny, but we've been able to help those agents grow by showing them a little bit better in scripting and have better follow-up when it comes to converting those leads. If they're working their database, I go over kind of how we convert past clients to pull referrals from it, how we do events, how we do the marketing towards them that is much more organic and seamless of how it integrates you as a person versus just cold calling and dialing through a list, and allows you to stay top of mind. So a lot of that is how we stay in front of our agents, provide value, but also at the same time, we figure out, is there just gaps in knowledge? They don't need to know anything about mortgages, but are they spending too much time trying to pre-qualify a client when we could take a look at it just because they may have had another relationship with a lender that wasn't as flexible or as knowledgeable when it comes to guidelines, and then kind of just training them a little bit on how we do things differently, why our way matters, and how we can convert at a higher ratio than a lot of other lenders with what we offer and our knowledge, and how that plugs into their business. And then, over 60, 90, 120 days, we show them that by actually getting chances to do deals together and help them leverage that and pull referrals.
Yeah, I love that you're having those conversations, especially like getting to know what their goals are for the year and really just sort of, I mean, that's partnership, right? When you have an understanding of what the other person wants and you're trying to help them get to those goals as well and achieve those things. That's a huge difference. I think a lot of times people approach it from a transactional point of view. They just want to get the one deal, hope they do a good enough job that they get the next deal, but at the end of the day, you're not really building something with that person. So I think you're taking a really smart approach. And you've also mentioned that now that the team is built, it might be time to integrate some additional tools into your business, things like HomeBot or First Home IQ, things that are more financial literacy driven type things. What impact do you expect those tools to have on your business moving forward?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I see, especially because a majority of my clients are in similar age. I typically have clients between like 25 and 35 as far as their age. A lot of them, unfortunately, don't have strong financial literacy because a lot of it's not being taught in school. A lot of the active duty military don't get proper education when it comes to finances. There's great resources on base like Fleet Family Services, but on the off chance, depending on who they work with and talk to, they may or may not get good or applicable or current information that can help them make the right decisions. So integrating like HomeBot, First Home IQ, and some of these other softwares that are out there, anything that I can do to leverage the Sphere network that we have and provide as much financial education and financial literacy training as I can. I wish I had had that. Like if I wasn't a mortgage loan officer, I would be on a very different path financially, and I wouldn't know pretty much what I didn't know. And that's, there's real estate agents I work with that ask us even just for some financial education on budgeting and things like that, because even though you're in the industry, there's certain things you may not know. And as a loan officer, when you've built a pretty good business, you're talking to 40, 50, 60 plus people a month. You're going to learn so many different walks of life and ways people approach finances, but a vast majority of them don't know how much they have in savings. They don't know how much they make on an annual basis. They don't really have much money saved, and they're really not making the right choices. So using those as an additional touch point for the clients to provide actual tangible value outside of what we do in the mortgage process, I think would be huge. Because at the end of the day, whether they never buy another home again, if they can realize how their home is a vehicle to set themselves up for a better future financially, whether they sell it, rent it, or whatever, that's very important, because it can be the difference between having a comfortable retirement and not, if you don't handle it correctly.
Yeah, it really speaks to sort of the evolution of the role of loan officer. We're starting to see more and more conversation around like home equity advisor and financial, those types of things where the loan officer can really step in and educate that client on how to leverage their house and the different options that are available to them in the future versus just doing the loan, right? My wife and I, we bought our house 18, 17 years ago, have never heard from our loan officer ever since. but, and so we never got that education or that piece, but it's, along the way, it would have been nice maybe to get a call just to know what our options were. Right.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
to have those things presented to us. Anyway, so I think that's really smart. Now, you've been doing over 100 units a year for the last couple of years. And most of that, you've been doing that solo. And I've talked to a lot of good producers on this show. They struggle with sort of like giving up that control. And your story is no different, right? You described running 5 or 6 scenarios for a client one day and then being asked 5 or 6 more the next morning. Like, what is it like to mentally operate like that? And what finally pushed you to, just say, all right, I need some help?
Yeah, so this year is really the first year that I've really doubled down into delegating and building out a team. So, the last couple of years when I was doing over 100 units, I was running pretty much everything from initial lead to the time they wanted a contract. And then I had, a processor, but even then the processor wouldn't chase some of the conditions. So that was something that we had to fix, but I was still helping out with that. So managing 50-ish leads a month and then running all of that and agent meetings and meetings with other referral partners and working the database. It was a lot of hours. It was weekends. It was holidays. It was luckily, I still always had time for me to go on vacations and trips, but I was still working a majority of that. I remember, a handful of years ago, my wife and I went on a trip for her birthday, and we were there Monday through Friday in Mexico. And I still almost put in a 40-hour week on vacation in Mexico. Just the scenery changed. And so after a handful of years of this, I realized I can't operate like that. So either my volume needs to dip dramatically to where I'm not overwhelmed, which I definitely don't want that to happen, or I need to build a team and delegate. And so luckily I found a really good person to take kind of that LP1 or, upfront LOA role and get her integrated this year. And she's been crushing and has been off to the races. But my biggest goal for this year, whether my volume stays the same or even dips a little bit, is to basically cut the hours that I was working in half. Because at the end of the day, I want more time with family. I want more time with friends. I want more time for myself and not be on all the time, 70, 80 hours a week. And I think, at least from what I've seen now, is this month might be one of the best months I've ever had or best month I've ever had. And I've worked substantially less. I took 8 days off in January. I took a week off in February. And I have some other trips planned as well. So it's definitely trending in the right direction.
Yeah, man, that's phenomenal, dude. Like living the life now, right? So,
Right.
and previously, because this is, we got to highlight like the change here, right? You used to run a big team, 9 loan officers. You guys did a ton of volume, and then made the decision to managing a team that size maybe wasn't right for you where you were in the career. And I know a lot of loan officers think bigger is better, and they're trying to build almost like they have to, right? What did you learn from that experience that changed your thinking?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I definitely take, full accountability to is that, I was in a very big growth mode for my own personal business. So the year that I built that team out was also the best year I'd ever had in mortgages. So I definitely didn't do the best job that I possibly could have done as a manager. There's probably a lot of things I could have done differently. And at the end of the day, people that I had hired, we still talk, we're still close. But we decided, at the end of the year, especially because I was getting ready to switch companies, that I didn't really want to run a team like that again or rebuild a team like that. At least now, I really wanted to focus on my systems, my processes, and my business, because even though I was helpful to those loan officers getting deals to the table, especially with guideline knowledge and the reputation that we had with the back of the house at the company as far as operations, there wasn't enough experience on my end to provide as much value as they probably needed. While it was great to go from 2 loan officers and 9, go from 50 million a year to 125 million a year, or on track for that with a team that had, being pulled in a million different directions wasn't helping them, wasn't helping my business, and it really wasn't helping our clients because the systems and processes weren't built out nearly as fluidly as they could have been. So with where I'm at now, it's me and one other loan officer. We did right about 50 million as a team last year. This year, we're probably on track for closer to probably 60, 75, just with the two of us as we're kind of ramping up a little bit. And, this year I'll probably, if I hit my goals, be about 40, 45 million. Just focusing on that, because once we have that built out with the team that we have, then we can add in other loan officers and show, hey, this is success we've had. These are the hours that we're working. Our system works. You can just plug and play and run your business as you see fit. And then everyone's happy.
Yeah, man. And I think that's phenomenal. Hats off to you for recognizing that and then making the necessary change and really just taking back control. That's a train that could go off the rails really fast, and really put you in a situation where you're burning out. Now you've been in coaching most of your career. You've been through Mortgage Marketing Animals, GoCoaching, Catalyst with Shayla Gifford. You got Union Homes' own internal program there. Like, has coaching sped up your time frame? Like, what do you credit coaching for in your career?
I think the biggest thing with coaching is the accountability. I mean, anyone that's been in the industry for a while that's done any kind of coaching knows a majority of it comes from the same foundational through the core. It's all different iterations of it with little things added in that make it their own. Knowing the bare minimum number of calls, face to faces, and that accountability to know where you're at and on any given week. So the first couple of years that I was originating, like I said, I was doing 50, maybe 60 deals a year, right around 17 to 18 million. And I was doing coaching, but that was more of learning how to delegate, to the team that I had, which really was just a processor, but me not to, chase as much as I was, and how to have more meetings. But then I joined GoCoaching, and they went over more and much heavier accountability, how to leverage social media. And my business went from 17 million to 35 million the next year. My volume doubled, my units almost doubled. And then using that, I went to a couple other coaching programs just to see what those other top producers had as far as recommendations and how they built their business, and leverage that to still over 100 units the next year. So stayed right on track, did a little bit more than the previous year. And then this year, leveraging the coaching Union Home has, and just some of the other accountability that I've had through the other coaching I've received. This year, my Q1's up 100% in units and then pretty much 100% in volume over Q1 of last year, and on track to probably do 45 to 50 million if the numbers stay the same through the rest of the year, just by having that roadmap and having that network and resource. I think the biggest thing is, if want to go far, you need to go together with people, and especially people that are 10, 15, 20 years my senior, that have been doing significant volume for that amount of time. Like, I'm the first person to say I don't know everything. I work better in a team environment where I can learn from somebody. coming from a college athletics background, like if someone says you're going to have X amount of success if you go run through that wall, I'll just be like, okay, how many walls? And just go do it. And that, I think that's the biggest part of coaching is you don't really have to think. They do it for you. They tell you what you need to do, and you just need to implement and execute.
Yeah, and I love that you're getting in the right rooms around the right people. Your future is going to be heavily influenced by the people around you, right? Like they used to tell us that in school all the time. Show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future. And I think there's so much just wisdom to that and so much truth to that. So I love that you're getting around all the right people. Now, 2 more questions, man. So as we get here towards the end, you talked about wanting to make a real impact on just financial literacy, especially for military families. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of just lack of information. If you had the platform and the resources to really move the needle in that area, what would that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing would be to do much larger seminars and talks on a much bigger platform to reach as many military, whether they're active duty or veterans, to give them the education and knowledge that a lot of them are missing. You see, especially as a loan officer that work, in the VA loan space, a lot of the lower enlisted getting these trucks or cars with 17, 18, 20% APRs from the auto dealerships when they don't have to. They unfortunately get taken advantage of a lot. You have, unfortunately, it's a huge statistics, a lot of divorce in the military as well, and how that impacts real estate they may own, their retirement, and things like that. And the number of people I talked to that retired from the military but never put a dollar into their TSP, which is basically the 401k for the active duty military. And when we asked them, hey, what other reserves you have? And they're like, none, just what's in my checking account. You did 20 years and you have no retirement account. A lot of them, just a little bit of extra information could be the difference between renting and struggling at retirement to having $1 million+ net worth with just small incremental changes that a lot of people don't realize compound and add up. So I would use those resources to try and reach as many people as possible, just to go over simple financial literacy that can pay dividends and make them ideally millionaires when it's time for retirement.
Man, I love that. And thank you for taking care of our veterans and doing everything you can to give them all the resources they need. They're our heroes. They protect us here at home. So I love that somebody's out there fighting the good fight for them. Now, just to bring things full circle, at the very beginning of this, we talked about having mentors that were working because they had to. And I know one of your goals is to hit that FIRE number, what is it? Financially independent, retire early. Am I getting the acronym right? Okay, great. To where, work is optional for you really, 5-7 years from now, right? So for a loan officer who's in that sort of 5 to 8 loan a month grind, let's call it, and they just can't see their way out of it, what is one thing they need to actually change right now to start building toward that kind of independence?
I think the biggest thing is tracking your finances and realizing where your money is going. Because depending on your market or your comp plan, 5 to 8 loans a month is still a solid 6-figure income. And the general rule of thumb is this: basically save and invest 20% of your net. If you're in a position where you can avoid lifestyle creep, like where I've been for the last couple of years, I track everything. We're saving and investing 60 to 70% of the net, so I can get to that number. And we still travel, still have, a nice house and things like that. If you do the right things and you track everything, it can make a massive difference. You just have to be disciplined.
I love that advice. I love that advice. I know there's a reputation out there that not all loan officers are great with money. So, so I love that advice. And that's, to see it in practice where you're in the Canary Islands, hanging 10, right? Catching some waves, seeing, like, living the life and still putting money aside and just being financially responsible. So I appreciate you sharing that. Taylor, I just want to say thanks for being on the Lowdown. It's been great kind of hearing your perspective on this business, your story and kind of journey through growth. And I just appreciate you being willing to share it.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you having me. This has been fantastic.
Absolutely, man. And for anybody listening, go subscribe to the Lowdown podcast. We run episodes every day, Monday through Friday. We're talking with top producers like Taylor, and you can learn a lot from these episodes. So I appreciate you listening. And again, Taylor, thank you.
No, thank you.